We are.
This is the July 10th meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission. The meeting is hereby called to order under the authority of the Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw and Stormwater Management Erosion Control Bylaw. Notice is given that both a video and audio recording will be made of this meeting. The agent will now call the roll for attendance.
Arthur Page.
Here.
Kurt Turner.
Here.
Bob Garner.
Here.
Judy Keys. Absent. Dan Shinnick. Absent.
He had state, he was.
Right. He's, but I still have to,
Yeah.
just call him. So. Sam Strife.
Here.
And Howard Vogel. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum present.
Very good. The first item on our list would be payroll and/or vendor bills.
Patch and vendor bills. We want to clean up things from FY18 here. That's okay.
How did we do?
We did pretty well.
As good as last year?
No, not as good as last year. I did trail work on Hunsley Hills and I was exhausted on the 30th. I didn't get down to the post office in time to spend our last measly $5 on stamps.
Within 5.
So this is a request authorization to, yep, coming out of the NOI fund, so for mailing the permit out. And there's the backup receipt for that.
How are things in Maine?
Cooler than here. Let's put it that way. And the lobster are getting more expensive.
How expensive are they? Pound and a half.
Hard shells are I was buying them from a guy there for $7, lobster in for about $7.50 for a hard shell. They're not getting the soft shell, they're a little late this year.
Okay, here's our final acquisition of various stuff to work down our expense line. All useful things. Just where it's red circled,
Yeah.
we're sticking all sorts of graphics in everything now, so I can't compress it down.
Get a
Just
good
one
discount,
page.
so. $40 discount.
I always try to buy wisely. Take advantages, make coupons.
And coupons. They're good ones.
Okay, that takes care of the vendor bill.
All right, the next item is minutes. And we have noted here, there's 3 sets of minutes. May 29th, 2018, June 19th, 2018, February 14th, 2012. First one would be May 29th. Everybody have a chance to look at the electronic?
Yep.
Is that the one that was questions on? No? Okay. Everybody accept that as printed?
Yep.
Do we have a motion to accept it?
Accept it.
Second? All in favor? Aye.
I'm sorry, Howard second.
Didn't you say second first?
No, I said,
Yeah.
I accepted it.
Oh.
Accept.
Yeah, he
Oh,
accepted.
okay.
He moved to accept. So anyway, it's unanimous for presence.
That brings us
Thank
to
you.
the June 19th, 2018.
Now, these are the ones that went out today, so you
Yes, I saw
actually do
them.
have copies in case you didn't get a chance to actually look at them.
Was there any problems with that? Everybody saw the electronic
There
version?
was a
Questions?
suggested, Commissioner Turner suggested that we insert on page 2 of 5, under the agenda item that was the new request to determine applicability
Yes.
for 568 Weathersfield Street. We inserted in there that in response to a question from Turner, the applicant's representative agreed to consider an alternative second possible test site in lieu of the one presented in the event that the primary site choice is infeasible.
We accept that with the, anybody like to accept that with that added on it, Mr. Turner? Because I remember Mr. Turner bringing that up.
I'll,
Do you hear a motion to
Move it.
accept it? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And it's approved, thank you very much.
There was also the deletion of Mr. Volko from those.
Yeah, I was
Those
absent.
present.
Well, that, yeah, that was,
Good evening, Judy.
Judy has arrived.
So the last item would be the February 14th, 2012. Everybody have a chance to look at the electronic version? Is there any questions or amendments? Okay, there was.
Yeah, it was relatively insignificant. We
Yes.
needed to insert the word "to" in a statement for the motion on page 3 for
Yes.
request for certificate of compliance. Delmarco moved to issue a complete certificate of compliance.
To issue, yes. All right, with that correction, that okay with everyone? We hear a motion to accept it. Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
See, when I read those things, correct, you got a good mind, because I read those, I would automatically put the word "to" in it. It just-
Well, yeah, same thing. We're used to what it's supposed to say, and we sometimes auto-correct.
I don't even know if I can
Or
read
not.
word for word.
Can't get through a lot of stuff.
All right, well, that brings us down to the Mahaffey Farm Conservation Restriction Baseline Report, review and acceptance.
So I had provided a link to this, and I don't know whether anyone followed up in regards to it, but what I'm displaying right now is one of the items that I requested be inserted. Let's see if I can blow it up a little bit here so we can actually see this. And to start off a baseline report, the same way you start off a conservation restriction document, is you list some of the attributes of the property that make it worthy of having a permanent restriction put in place, or whatever. In this case, we're talking about a restriction. So one of the reasons for seeking a conservation restriction on the Mahaffey Farm is because a significant portion of it is in the Zone 2. And therefore, it contributes to protection of the drinking water supply. Greenbelt just didn't happen. They stated it in the original draft baseline report, but they didn't put the actual graphics here of the map of the resource area. So that's one of the items that was a suggested addition, which they agreed with. And the second one here, kind of on the same category. Again, it just had to do with where priority habitat has a portion of the property. I guess I'm not displaying that as well as I should be. Just that. So the red hatched area in the upper left-hand corner is some of the natural heritage and endangered species biomap designated areas. And again, this is just, it was reflected in the text, but it's good to provide a graphic, because the first question out of someone's mouth usually is, well, where is this on the property? Where is that?
Right.
So, other than that, I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to look at the baseline report a little bit. Just wanted, because we've got a lot of this going on right now, I just wanted to take a brief instance and just, so you've got text, you've got maps, you've got aerial photos. You then have testimony which gets attested to in terms of visiting the property to actually go and do a reconnaissance of the property to document those places. And then this is part, maybe we should blow this down a little bit. So this goes over some of the different criteria, but the important thing here is that there's photos that are provided later on that are all referenced in this with various numbers for where the images are taken. And then it's documented. Let's see if I can get to it. Yeah, here we go. So then it's documented by you GPSing and establishing the points where you then take photographs in various compass directions, again, to record what the visual component is of the property, what its condition is at the time that you're putting in place the CR. With the understanding that things will change, natural landscapes, forests, etc. will change, but you're also capturing some of the uses, especially some of the boundaries between where the CR is coming up to the area that's excluded in the center, where the farm activities are, where the farmhouse is, the barn, the greenhouses and stuff like that. So you not only capture some of the natural resource components of what the property looks like, its interface in forests and fields, but you then also document by showing where the interface is between the allowed uses that are going to occur. In this case, the island that's in the property that is outside of the restrictions, so that they can have a farmhouse and maintain it and have the barn, et cetera, and do normal things that are involved with upkeeping those things and living there, residing there. But this is just an example of part of the components, and then you get into the nitty-gritty details where you actually have like a spreadsheet listing that has latitude and longitude where the photos, because maybe unbeknownst to you, but a lot of digital cameras now capture that information. They can be set to capture their GPS coordinates, and so then you have the images that have small descriptions giving you an idea of what you're looking at, where you are.
100 years from now, it'll be a lot more interesting than...
Right, but it's also...
For somebody.
Yeah.
Especially doing the perimeter, though, it's also interesting because you sometimes come across other people who don't necessarily know where their boundary line ends and where
that's
the boundary of the property, and sometimes uses or disposal of things, whatever. So anyway, it ends up being a useful tool both in monitoring as well as enforcing and protecting the CR from the possibility of intrusions from abutting uses.
Now, this is the first time I've seen this type of stuff. Have they been doing that?
Well, this
Before
is prepared, this becomes a component of the conservation restriction.
But we don't have this in any of our other properties.
Oh, yes, we do.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
The country
With the
club.
GPS and the pictures?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Country club, right?
Yeah. In fact, I'm very proud of the fact that with a couple of scouts for their service projects, I had them go and do the photo points and do the documentation of some of the properties that were given to us that didn't have CRs or whatever, because it becomes a tool for us too, to show the condition of the property, and for us as a stewardship tool, especially properties that abut single-family residence or whatever, again, where you may have uses that stray over
Right.
property lines and stuff. But yeah, I was.
Rough Meadows, don't they have one as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, again, this is a required component by the state, which is why Mr. Sullivan at 42 Newbury Road, why that's one of the tasks
Right.
that he needs to be
Okay.
doing, that I'm trying to work with him. But, yeah, and the state has come out and done it. You may remember that I came and reported on the fact that the state did a revisit to the Pingree Farm property that fronts on Boxford Road, because they apparently didn't realize there were two Pingree Farm conservation areas, and they had hired a contractor to do a baseline report when I first came to work in Rowley, 2004, 2005, on the property over by the Welf water filtration
Yes.
plant
Yep.
that interfaces Georgetown State Forest, but they had lost or misplaced the record of, that the town had acquired the property on Boxford Road. And so just, I think it was a year ago, maybe, it may even been January or February of this year, they had a contractor come out, and she and I went out and did monitoring. That's when we came across the fact that the pelletiers, with their accumulation of auto parts, had strayed a little bit across the boundary line and had
Yes.
then reworked their materials back to their side of the
All
road.
right, no, that's good.
So this is a recognized methodology that helps you in your stewardship activities. It helps you in documenting the condition of the property. It provides a record that then is just as good and should accompany things like the deed, et cetera.
It's also, the Mahaffey property was also partly funded by Community Preservation Act committee funds.
Yeah.
Came from the town, and conservation restrictions are required in those cases.
Yes. Yeah. So I would respectfully request the commission to consider voting to accept the baseline report that was submitted and modified a little bit, and authorize the chairman on behalf of the commission to sign the document, because we need to sign it, that we accept it since we're one
Yes.
of the co-holders.
So
Wait a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, so Kurt moved, and I'm sorry, who seconded it?
Bob,
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry, it didn't get written down. Motion sheet. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe that was it for administrative items. And so,
All right, this brings us to a 7:45 item. The legal notice for the Raleigh Conservation Commission in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended by the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw. Public hearing will be held Tuesday, July 10th, 2018, 7:45, Room 5, Town Hall Annex at 39 Central Street. Consider the request for a determination of applicability for the application for Charles Hazen and Arena Hazen for the proposed soil evaluations for a subsurface sewage disposal system designed possibly within 100 feet of a buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands at 12 Havel Street, map 15, parcel lot 82, Raleigh, Mass. And you have the floor.
Thank you. Tom Mineta from Thomas Mineta Incorporated, representing the Hazens tonight for 12 Havel Street. We're here to perform soil testing for septic repair. It will be within the 100-foot buffer zone. On the site plan, the brown area is the existing house. The yellow is a 50-foot buffer zone. The orange line is the 100. This purple area is where we're proposing to test, which is right in the front yard between the house and the street. The green areas here are the bordering vegetated wetlands. So we've pushed it as
Where's
far as
the
we
present system?
right in this area right here.
Oh, so it works out perfect.
Yeah.
Good. Any questions from the board? Brent?
Well, has the
I haven't seen
commission
the
had
memo.
an opportunity to review the memo? We'll start with the soil testing. That in response, this is a constrained site, more than likely a site that was developed by being filled at the front. Once you get to the rear of the dwelling, it slopes down noticeably and seems to adopt what may have been the original surface topography for the area. It gradually goes back to where it becomes forested wetlands, and there's an intermittent stream which may possibly be the rear boundary. Now, the plan that is in front of us only goes back to where the delineation of the BVW was. That is not the rear boundary line of the property. It appears from the assessor's information, although I didn't have an opportunity to look up the deed itself, it appears from the assessor's information that you've got this kind of French curve which may be following the stream channel. And let me, actually, what I should do,
Property on the south side of the north side of Haverhill Street.
this is on the south side.
Okay.
It's almost on the corner. I assume.
There's lots actually that butt up to it on Prospect, so it doesn't go all the
Right
way
after
through.
Prospect, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 4 lots.
So
Yeah.
this is number 10, and we have a new version of my map that the town is being introduced to by the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. We haven't had any training sessions yet, and the way we were introduced to it is that when we came to work on July 2nd, that was what we were faced with in trying to use. So I wasn't quite able to get this to scale, but you can see the water course, the stream channel here, roughly following the rear, and it continues down here, and the property boundary for the rear that's being shown by the assessor's information appears to follow or parallel the water course. So I believe there's an intermittent stream channel back there.
Where does that originate?
It originates almost at the intersection of 1A and Route 133. I don't know if anything actually comes across underneath the roadway that's culverted, but around the Pancake House and where these residences end, it seems to initiate, and it seems to be a combination of a lot of roadway drainage as well as then the runoff coming from these lots, because all of the properties slope away from Haverhill Street and 133, and so I think all of them kind of shed their water in this direction. But so anyway, so the point was, getting back to the soil testing, is that the front of the property, and
That's not our lot.
No, okay, I was gonna say, where is that?
That brush is
Well,
not
yeah.
on our lot.
Okay.
so this is the front corner of the property where this edge is to the west. We're looking south past the front of the dwelling down towards the rear backyard. Because of the bright sunlight, it's kind of hard to see, but just take my word that it slopes down. This also drops off, and so the only suggestion I had for a modification in regards to what's proposed was that Tom and I agreed that the erosion control should be J-hooked, should start from that corner of the dwelling, go over to the side boundary line, and then be run right up to Haverhill Street to stop anything, because even though that's woods there, it also, again, shows the same evidence of filling for development of this lot and to establish the front lawn, and then it slopes right off 2 or 3 feet onto the abutting property. And again, so to keep sediments in place while he does the soil evaluations, we'll put that there as a precautionary measure. So and then the typical conditions for soil evaluations. So then this is where I'm going to transition a little bit to talking about the abutting property. When the abutting property came before the commission,
And we're talking the pie-shaped one now.
yeah, we're
Right,
talking,
yep,
yeah,
okay.
1581. So they needed a replacement system, they had an RDA for soil evaluations, and then the commission required a notice of intent to put the septic system in. Not because the septic system activity needed a notice of intent, but so the commission could also put in place a 5-foot no-cut, no-disturbance zone because of the close interface between rear yard that was being used and where the wetlands occurs on the rear of the property. This actually light green color is all emergent freshwater marsh, and there was a lot of activity going on in the lot where they were trying to mow and claim as much of the bordering vegetated wetlands as quote-unquote rear yard, because that lot is a challenge. It's kind of wedge-shaped or a quarter of a pie, however you want to express it. So the commission, in order to put ongoing conditions on the property and require posts for the bounds, and this was pretty early on, this I think was 2006 and 2007. So I don't know if we had developed a standard operating procedure of requiring the signage on the 4x4 posts, but we had at least gotten there with posts and trying to establish a measure of respect for the wetlands. That's why only a 5-foot no-cut, no-disturbance area was considered. Of course, I'm not able to control how my images get arranged here. So
Where is that coming from?
you actually can see the results. So there is one of the
Posts.
posts indicating the 5-foot no-cut, no-disturbance
Afraid
on
that
the
was-
abutting property, and you have a massive brush pile from a tree that apparently came down in their yard, where 50 to 60% of the brush pile is in the wetlands, in the no-cut, no-disturbance zone. Obviously, I can send a letter of communication to the present property owner, who is not the property owner that we dealt with at the time, about this issue. But the question here is, do you want to consider the same approach to protecting the wetlands on Mr. Hazen's property? A 5-foot no cut, no disturbance zone would not, in my estimation, and you can comment if you wish, since you were an observer there, it's really not going to have a measurable impact on what he has for usable backyard, because in most cases, right now, he's got an L-shaped shed building that it appears he inherited, which is not structurally sound. At least the roof isn't. And there may be the possibility in the future that they deal with this. It looks like it may be something that came from whoever the previous property owner was, whether it's being utilized or not. But the point is that the commission, I believe, could implement a 5-foot no cut, no disturbance area.
Which is what he has.
Yeah.
No, this lot doesn't.
The
Mr.
abutter.
Hazen does not, but the abutter does. But I'm just saying, for consistency, it would appear that the commission, if they wish to, could implement a 5-foot no cut, no disturbance area, require post and signage, and not negatively impact the Hazen's area that they presently use as livable backyard.
I would agree with the exception of this point, only because that's their lawn right near that.
Right, so we could adjust, I mean,
Right, you
again,
know,
the
where
commission
they
the
have
commission
that-
could make a
right.
decision to
We have
adjust
a fire
that.
pit in the backyard here. I mean, it's nicely.
So they're using.
They're using this, I mean, this area back here wouldn't be a problem at all.
So here-
It's just this-
so
Because
here-
of the grandfathering of it. I
Here
would
we can
think
look at that, so there you actually see the fire pit
Oh,
Right.
okay. Yeah.
located there.
Yeah.
So we're actually talking, using the shed as a landmark, we're talking somewhere in this area right here where the wetlands edge is right near the quote-unquote edge of lawn. So again, we could make some adjustments. The commission could say, well, we're going to vary the width. We've done a variable width with 5-foot maximum type of thing. The 5 feet would go behind the shed, which
Right.
they are definitely not going behind the shed,
Right,
because
plus
both
it's
Tom
heavily wooded.
and I made a decision that we weren't going to tear our clothes apart
Yeah, to get behind
and
there.
try to go behind there to check the
Right.
wetlands delineations.
Well, it's up to you guys, but I'm fine with, you know, with that 5 foot and then have it tapered off.
And I think the methodology to do this is to have them submit a notice of intent application for the installation of the septic system. That
Okay.
gives the commission then the ability to put ongoing conditions, which then are
Okay.
recorded and become a permanent record of the property, as well as require the installation of the bounds, et cetera. And again, yes, that would, we've done a lot of systems where we have governed and regulated the installation of the systems by a notice of intent, so it's not imposing an undue permitting burden on this property owner to accomplish this. And the ability, I think, to establish some guidelines and protect the edge of wetlands, especially with that intermittent stream in there, I think that opportunity is, technically it's the responsibility of the commission to do something like that, to seek an equilibrium on this parcel.
Is it possible to put conditions under the determination so that we don't have to come back?
The problem is that it doesn't get recorded.
Okay.
So it doesn't get recorded, and therefore,
Right, so
changing
we-
hands in the property, the next person could just pull the post right out of the ground, and we wouldn't know anything about it, and wouldn't be able to do anything about it, except if they actually put a large brush pile like the neighbor did.
Okay.
Brent, does that 5 feet on the Hazen side match up to 5 feet on the other side? More or less?
Except for the one point that we're talking about making an adjustment because of the interface of their lawn to the delineated edge of wetlands, yes.
Okay.
I'm proposing it to be consistent with the abutting property,
Okay.
which definitely had impacts of trying to establish a yard and constantly going into vegetated wetlands.
I remember that, but I couldn't remember where it was. Yep, okay.
That was all well zone, your time. Would never
Yes, this all flows down towards the old well house, and then it goes back underneath Haverhill Street.
I think the
Oh, I
water
can't
starts
remember.
right there, to tell you the truth.
Right past Pearlie's property, the gentleman who built the 2 houses that we finally got resolved, the intermittent stream goes back underneath Haverhill Street. And then somewhere behind the Bradford Tavern, somewhere behind there,
Right.
it intersects
Right
with the
behind
stream
the,
that comes out behind
yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Jameson's
Yeah.
property that goes
Yeah.
right next to the
Yeah.
Bradford Tavern.
All right. Okay, do I have a motion to accept that as presented?
Well, yeah, so this is issue a determination of applicability, but require them to come back for a notice of intent for putting the system in.
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Is that black on the left hand, is that all water there? Let's see the next lot over to the left on the screen.
You
There
know,
is a- there is a wetlands there.
Yeah, but also that could just be dark shadows, but it is forested wetlands
Well,
over
the
there.
fact that there's no trees here means that it's got a very high groundwater table.
But there definitely are trees on this
Yes.
spot that's
Right over
over
here.
to, that would be towards the west. That's going in the western
There are
direction.
trees.
Definitely there.
Steve killed the water tower.
Prospect.
All that drain east off the Prospect.
Yeah, remember that's where they used to have all the pens for the horses, that they used to have the riding schools there in the summer. And that
All
was-
set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was way-
Well,
So they used to have riding horses there during the summer.
Yeah.
I apologize, I did not have an opportunity to produce a memo
I would just read from this.
for, but let me, okay. I better have the legal ad here. 'Cause we separated it.
This brings us to our 8 PM item. This is a legal notice, Raleigh Conservation Commission. In accordance with the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw, public hearing will be held on Tuesday, July 10th, 2018, 8 PM, Room 5, Town Hall Annex at 39 Central Street to consider the notice of intent application filed by Abudara Ruby Holdings LLC for the proposed construction of 4 commercial self-storage buildings, 20 by 30 foot wide, 215 to 255 foot long, possibly within the DEP Groundwater Protection Area Zone 2 at 1000 Havel Street, Map 4, Parcel Lot 20, Raleigh, Mass. You have the floor.
Thank you. Tony Capuchetti, Hayes Engineering, 603 Salem Street, Wakefield, Massachusetts, for the record. I'll give you a business card.
Oh. I've already got it. We met.
I know, but it's,
We shared peaches.
we did. Get the opportunity to go for a site walk. There's some nice peach trees that Mr. Abizar planted on the side of the detention pond.
Really?
And they're right,
And
surprisingly,
there's
this
one-
early in the
There's
season.
one of them that is just absolutely
Out towards the
loaded
road
with
even.
peaches.
Yes. that's-
Oh, might have to go for a walk.
So, this is the ABZ self-storage facility.
You step back, stay.
I'm sorry. The buildings that aren't colored in
Oh.
exist today, pavement out to this area here. Project came before the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board in '98.
Yep.
There you
It
go,
was
it's
approved in
up on
99.
the screen now.
The original plan had two larger storage buildings in this area where we want to propose.
Now, that area is currently hot topped, correct?
It is reclaimed asphalt product. It's
Well, okay.
it's been there for
Mill-
about 10
millings,
years,
yeah.
so it is pretty impervious as it is currently. What Mr. Abazar has found is the smaller buildings actually work out better for him than the larger buildings as far as storage. He's got more demand for the smaller units. So what he's seeking to do is finish building out the project, construct two 30-foot buildings, two 20-foot buildings, access way, eliminate the access way to the rear, and go to loam and seed for that area. Yields a net reduction in impervious surface from the previously approved plan, about 9,500 square feet.
What about his car storage?
That will be moving off the area. I don't know
Okay.
exactly where to, but
Well, that'd make a lot of people relax.
Put them indoors.
so I had the pleasure of doing a site walk with Mr. Bazelak.
Yeah,
I wrote a lengthy memo in response to some of the questions that came up, and a long-term operations and maintenance plan, and I left them on my desk when I left today, so I will go from memory.
I was gonna say, and I don't think I got it by email either.
No, it was about 6 o'clock, and then I got a phone call as I was leaving.
Oh, I know how that goes.
So, the first question that came up on the site walk was the reclaimed asphalt project. What do we intend to do with it, especially under the buildings? That will be removed and hauled off-site. There was a question under the driveways. It does make good processed gravel under the driveways. We'd like to reuse it.
Right.
However, being in the groundwater protection area, if it's the board's opinion that it should come out, we'll remove it and haul it off-site.
are there any test wells on that property?
No, not,
Just
not that I'm
never
aware
been
of.
in need of it. Well, maybe I saw the pipe there, so I didn't know.
Well, this is actually the outlet to the basin, so I was just scrolling through, I didn't happen to take any pictures. Part of our site visit, I'm not gonna steal Tony's thunder here, we looked at the basin, but we did have a discussion about the reprocessed asphalt, and I related the fact that the commission in our groundwater protection area, zone
Don't
2,
like it.
has, well, right, because it can come in from its origins, it can come in with a low level of contaminants from either highway usage or wherever its origin was. It may have things like brake grindings on it, it may have petroleum products or whatever. So as the precautionary principle, the commission has established a policy that we just like to see it not be utilized within the zone 2. And so we established at the site visit that the material was going to be taken off-site.
And the fact that the cars, which get us a little nervous too, because they can leak.
They can, yes.
So that, I think it's a win-win situation.
Right.
So,
Let's get rid of this.
What's going to be underneath the buildings for flooring?
Concrete slab.
Concrete.
So, cement concrete.
Is that one huge concrete slab over covering those 4 building areas, or broken up into?
It's
Well, I think
broken
it's
up,
going to be four slabs.
and it actually, it steps with the grade. So they'll be poured, there's a 6-inch step, and then I believe there's a foot step someplace in there, or a 9-inch step. So it follows the grades, because what we do is we pitch down the center to a couple of low point catch basins to pick up the drainage. Portions of the drainage are built. What we've done is moved the rooftop infiltration from the area that we're going to restore to loam and seed back under the pavement, which is consistent with the rest of the site. Next question that came up on the site walk was, being in the groundwater protection district, do we meet stormwater standards currently compared to the previous one? So I went and I looked back, I pulled out my 1997 stormwater policy. Standard 6 was the same for critical areas, which is requires 1 inch of treatment. And they have some restrictions on BMPs. They're the same restrictions. They look for 44% pretreatment prior to going into an infiltration area. That 44% pretreatment's achieved between deep zone catch basins that we did looked through 3 of them that had snouts on them. I didn't go through the whole site, it was pretty hot, but in the letter that I wrote, first pre-construction step is to do a full O&M walkthrough, make sure all the snouts are on, clean out the catch basins, basically follow the operations and maintenance plan to get up to speed, and then immediately post-construction.
Now, that's not his boundary line, that diagonal line. He owns both pieces, doesn't he? No,
He owns
oh,
this
way.
piece, this piece, and this piece.
What about the next
To
piece
the
over?
right,
This one here?
Yeah.
that's where he's doing all the digging. no?
Well, okay.
That's where the
it's-
loam is stored, I believe.
Yeah, so some of this is Sharif's under Ruby Holdings.
Okay.
I
That's what-
think the lot 20-2, that may be the Abu Zara Family Trust
Yeah.
They,
with his wife, Jihad,
yes.
I think. So, but the Abu Zara family is
Yes.
involved there. Consistently, there is a family member as a trustee, if not different trusts, you know.
And that's my understanding as
Yeah.
well, is that they may be different entities, but it's the same thing. So after addressing the stormwater quality issue, making sure that we met the current standard, we did a brief site walk through the detention pond, which there is supposed to be a 4-bay in this area here. And I pulled out the original plans, and surprisingly, no, I did not do the design. This design was
Yeah.
done by Apple Associates, which is now out of business, so we're trying to take over at minimal cost without reinventing the wheel. So the detail, which I thought was interesting, shows the 4-bay a foot higher than the bottom of the infiltration bed, which it is not. I'd say really stretching it maybe 6 inches, do you think was?
Yeah.
But filled with stone, which is kind of odd.
Yeah.
We would be happy to remove a portion of the stone. I think having stone on the bottom is a good idea in a 4-bay.
Right.
Makes them easy to clean out. But dig down, do maybe a 3-inch layer of stone, and then provide that 1-foot drop, so it pools in here and then spills over to the.
Well, yeah, we talked about when you look at the two-dimensional diagram from above, and, well, let me blow it up a bit here, excuse me, enlarge it. You got the idea from the contour lines that there was supposed to be something raised across here that provided a depression on this side, allowing that depression to fill up before it overflowed or went through whatever berm, check dam, or something before it got into the main part of the basin. And that's usually what a 4-bay is supposed to accomplish. A 4-bay is supposed to slow down the velocity, allow the heavy suspended solids to drop out, and as it fills up, then it flows over. So it accomplishes sort of a tertiary treatment, a gravity treatment before it gets into the regular basin. I'm going to switch back to my, whoops.
And I spoke to Mr. Abazara after the site walk and today, and he has no problem taking that out.
So what's been happening here is that basically this whole area was a plateau that appeared to only have like a gradual 6-inch change in elevation. So everything's been flowing across there, all the needles, the leaves, and everything else have kind of acted as impromptu little berms, and they've forced everything to go down here where it's made a channel.
Yeah.
It's basically created sort of a gully in that crushed stone to go down into the regular basin. So it doesn't really accomplish any holding or any treatment. It basically flows out across that plateau, hits all the berm pine needles and leaves, and then gets directed down here without it accomplishing any impoundment. It's
We
not
can
held
go
back
right
at
unless
all.
we have a good storm.
And we've had a few, and that's, I think, why you're seeing the migration.
Okay.
So
you're gonna correct that?
yeah, so we're talking about some slight massaging, not really deviating from what we believe was the intended design, but now that you found that detail, yes, we are deviating a little bit.
Well, I can see,
But I
I
think
how
we're-
you could read it either way.
Right.
I tend to think that this is the better way, showing how the contours
Well,
of
this
the
seems to
bowl.
be more in line with accepted BMPs
Yeah, I
for
agree.
design of a basin.
And you could see some trash that had made its way in there that was moving down. Not a lot. I think there was a couple of cans, but
Yeah.
the idea is that with the depression, that trash will settle in there and stay in there versus.
Then you only have to maintain the forebay, clean out that stuff. You don't have to be going across the whole basin trying to rake things in.
Was there anything else that,
Well, yeah,
There's
there's a
probably-
few. There's a few.
4 other things. They're very minor, and
Yeah.
we're willing to address all of them, but I
Okay.
figured I'd go through them with the board. There's 2 pipes which appear to be coming out of, they have trench drains here that have outlets.
yes.
So, yeah, so we think these are coming from the
roof.
office building and they're possibly roof runoff
Is there,
or.
is there gutters on there? or-
Well, no, they have a 2-foot wide drip edge, and if you look at the detail, there's a perforated pipe that runs through the drip edge. So
Oh.
I believe that's what those.
That looks
pipes-
like there's some volume there.
It does look like this, at least.
We can easily be talking just deferred maintenance here over the period of at least 12 years,
Okay.
at
Oh, yeah.
least.
No, that's, and,
So,
what we talked about in the field and what we're proposing is get some 4-inch minus and,
yeah.
kind of shore up around the
Yeah.
2 pipe ends. The next one was the outlet control structure. There's some vegetation that's kind of encroaching on there, poplar tree.
Well, yeah, we've got a poplar tree that's draping it, and it's hidden in the shadows, but right back here is a multi-stemmed hardwood that, I don't know if it's a cherry or whatever, but it's basically, you're not supposed to have tree growth down that low in the basin, number one. It's also not supposed to be basically encompassing and shrouding your outlet
That's,
structure.
Trying to be a glass full guy. The fact that we have tree growth that low means that the infiltration's working a lot better than anticipated, so there's not standing water in there. What we'd like to do is cut those trees back to the ground, treat the stumps rather than remove them, just because they're.
Yes, you don't want to.
Yeah, no, so that's, as long as the commission's on board with that, that's how we'd like to handle it.
And that was my suggestion, even though I'm very hesitant to use a herbicide, we are just talking cut stump application so the stump doesn't all resprout and we get 20 different poplar stems instead of just the one that we're severing at this point in time.
That's fine, and, you know, if you want to come out when we do it, just to make sure that it's,
Well, if somebody checks on it every 5 years, I think.
You know,
well, that's,
yeah.
the O&M plan, which we have no problem being added to the order, that he maintains it. Every 4 months, he should be inspecting it. Twice a year, he should be mowing the side, and adding that to the recorded order.
It's typical stormwater basin where it gets built, it's working well, it doesn't fail, and therefore nobody really does
Nobody looks at
anything
it.
to it, because they just kind of leave it alone.
Yes, and that's, the spillway is kind of hard to define.
Find the spillway in that picture.
So when we go into to maintain it, when we have the equipment on site, I look to defer that to, while we're doing the excavation work, take a machine, clean out a spillway.
We'll
When are
reestablish
you
it.
gonna do this?
They'd like to go the end of the summer if
Oh,
possible.
good,
And the riprap doesn't show on the plans going up over the embankment. We'll dress that down to the 82 contour, I would say, kind of get a nice spillway that comes over with 4-inch minus. The level spreader and outfall is kind of overgrown. We'd like to clean that up, pull the riprap out, kind of replace it, maybe put some Marafi below it to stop any growth from coming back through, or at least for the next.
Again, it may
12
just
years.
be covered up because of deferred maintenance, it may just have a bunch of leaves and pine needles accumulated on it. But at this point in time, all you can tell is that there is a depression there where the spillway should be, but it's been overgrown, and so we're gonna my suggestion was to reestablish it.
Kurt,
However,
you have a
we need to
question?
do that.
Where, this talks about this being possibly within the DEP approved groundwater protection area zone 2. What's the delineation of that?
So
It is
this,
definitely.
this,
within it.
It's the whole thing?
I believe
Yeah.
it is. The zone 2 is the
Yes.
maximum day pumping cone of influence for your public water supply wells. So your average day is your zone 1. On the max day, your zone 2 extends out, and it actually, it's pretty significant when you look at the area of the zone 2.
Is this a state zone or a town zone?
No,
Zone
this is
2 is-
town.
well,
This was
state.
established under the DEP water management permit when the well field number 5 and number 3 were
But
were brought on.
the
board.
zone 2 is a state protected zone.
Right.
However, you have to enact your own bylaw, which
Well, I guess I have a little bit of a concern with regard to the herbicide that we were talking about applying before, and I suggested one be selected with a consultation with Brent that is considered environmentally safe.
no,
Oh,
that,
right. Well, it's also brush stump application, so it's going to be a very minimal.
yeah, no, and that's we're more than happy to coordinate
Yeah.
with that because we understand it is the zone 2.
We'll use something that degrades within probably a week or whatever.
It's basically an ammonia base is what it is.
And I believe that hits everything that we discussed at the site walk. I'm going from memory, so I apologize if I did miss it.
No,
Well, I think it's a win-win. We're getting rid of the cars, we're switching pavement for roof, and we're fixing the existing situation, so. If anybody has any questions or problems with that?
no. And since we are asserting jurisdiction, we're accomplishing a refreshing of the entire stormwater management because by triggering the operations and maintenance plan again and requiring inspections of all the catch basins and everything else, we're going to make sure that all the deep sumps, all the hoods, everything else, just in case there's been some other deferred maintenance that hasn't caught some things, we'll just get it all refreshed at this point in time. And
In the letter I would have submitted, what I recommended was that as a condition of, pre-construction, we go through, we clean out the detention basin and infiltration basin, clean out the water quality inlet, clean out the sumps of the catch basin, then we can go put our silt sacks in, do construction, and then do another inspection post-construction and clean out anything that needs to be done.
well, just like we'd be apt to require a professional certification of no
Right.
illicit discharges under the stormwater standards, we're going to require that there be professional certification of whatever, however you want to say it, refreshing and reestablishment of all the stormwater BMPs and the whole functionality of the system, as well as the bylaw permit that we will issue will have that as an ongoing perpetual condition. So actually, since I haven't seen that operations and maintenance.
We do have a section on illicit discharges that
Yeah.
explain what you can and can't discharge.
Well, we also have a template for an inspection form that we've gotten a lot of good feedback on. I will send that to you also to have you, if you don't have an inspection form like this configured for that, I'm going to ask that you put one together. Because it has the, well, yeah, but this goes beyond, this has the BMPs, it has a description as to what one is looking for. It's meant to be an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that's a matrix that a person can take with them. And instead of them just going up to the catch basin and looking at the catch basin, it actually has an explanation as to what it is they are supposed to be actually inspecting for. So, the KISS principle.
No, that's good. That's, ours kind of just refers you back to the section, what you're supposed to be doing and how often. And then
No, we had somebody at one point in time put together one that's really standalone on an 8.5.
No, that'd be great. That's,
So-
be more than happy.
Go over again what's going to happen with the crushed asphalt.
It's going off-site.
Off-site.
That doesn't mean off-site to the other property.
Right.
No, we
No,
discussed.
we established that.
That's- Yeah, I think stockpiling of RAP,
Yeah, the stockpile alone is one thing, but I have a thing against.
No, the
recycling.
reprocessed asphalt is going out of the zone 2.
You said
More
some
than
of it
likely
might be
going
used.
out of Rowley.
At your discretion, it sounds like your discretion is no.
What's his name?
No, this time of year, it's easy to get rid of that anyways, because they use that to redo the. So what do we need at this point? What do we need at this point?
It's just to, a motion to authorize me to craft a bylaw order of conditions for this project with all the special conditions discussed as well as the normal ones that we put in place for Zone 2. So the one thing I didn't get to talk to you folks about is we also in the Zone 2 usually prohibit the use of rock salt as an ice preventative measure. But we do allow like magnesium, calcium, I mean there's a couple of ones that are identified as being more environmentally benign for ice preventative measures,
I
but
don't know that there's much beyond plowing that gets done out here. But
yeah, but everybody, yeah.
But
And-
under on the walkways and
We
stuff,
can,
that's fine.
we'll put that in.
And we also require, that being a commercial facility, we also require at the entrance there be posted a sign that will say rock salt prohibited, public drinking water supply, whatever. So, again, it's just meant to touch upon those things that you don't think about that you might do, but because it's a drinking water supply and because sodium in the water supply is such an issue.
No, that's fine. Signs available through the Conservation Commission or?
No, you do have to contact
that's
a
fine.
company and get a highway grade sign, but I mean, actually, you just drive down the street and that new landscaper's place, if you look down his road, you'll see there's a sign right there.
Should I take
for
that
the
one?
property. You shouldn't
No.
take it, but you can use it as,
No.
you can use it as an example.
I take a picture of it. Wait till about 8 o'clock at night.
Do I hear such a motion?
I've got a question.
Oh, good, excuse me.
Is the entrance into this property dirt or asphalt?
It is asphalt.
Asphalt, okay. So truck usage going in and out isn't gonna track stuff into Haverhill Street?
No, it's actually asphalt down to about here. And there's a gate and a fence at the end.
We can have them establish a crushed stone entrance exit pad so that they don't pull
Seems to me
anything
the
out.
first time around it was a problem here on the street.
Yeah,
Yeah, the woods,
Yeah,
well,
that's-
the other piece.
The other piece, there was all kinds of.
probably put it right here for the time being until they.
Right,
put the-
yeah, yeah, until they get it developed or whatever.
All right, do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Good.
Thank you very
I was
much.
hoping it would be Hannaford's there, but
Me too.
They need some more supermarkets, or at least some variety.
You
oh, I think that would be a good spot for it.
There's still more room on the adjacent
Planning.
It's, they are putting adjacent
No,
parking.
actually, I spoke to Mr. Abadar a while ago and mentioned that, and he said that he was actually looking into it on the other piece.
Good.
Can't you get your
There-
marijuana next
We
door,
need some
right?
more competition.
Yeah, there is,
Yeah,
actually.
is
Yes.
the marijuana place right next
So
door?
we did the engineering for that facility as well.
It's like a
Is
farm
that
or
operational?
It is operational, and it's.
They're
it's
growing,
actually-
right?
They grow and sell, dispense for medical.
Oh, they can sell. I thought they had to have a different.
Well, it's medical sales, I
No,
don't think it's
medical,
retail,
yeah.
right?
Not yet, I believe they are applying for a retail license there.
Huh?
Oh, it's
Healthy
what's the name?
Farms.
Healthy Farms.
Healthy
Healthy
Farms.
Farms, that's it.
Yeah, that was one of the first, that was a long
Is that
time
an
ago.
Ambazaro property?
No, actually, that's been.
Next door.
That was a printing.
Georgetown.
The Georgetown?
Printing
That was
shop.
Georgetown, that was a long drawn-out lawsuit between the two, there's some encroachment issues, they're not fans of each other. So-
Yes, I,
But thank you again.
all right, thank you.
Thank
And as
you.
soon as I get home, I'll email you those documents. I
Okay. Did we,
Oh, is that the place between the
we may
highway?
not have gotten,
The old printing.
or just check and make sure that I got copies or at least scans or something
It's gonna be big
of
industry, I
the
think.
responses for notification to the Georgetown abutters.
All right,
I got sent the list.
I have the job folder, I'll take a look real quick. before I-
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Do you send a sign?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Where all those cars are going?
Right on the ball.
They were all just stored
I
there.
wonder if you make more money, right?
I don't know, but we
Storing
bought-
inside storage
Brett
is
and I,
probably more
oh, we've been
expensive.
holding our breath
Yeah.
tonight, because one of those got a leak sometime.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I bet your car storage is
As long as
probably.
they're not going down Newbury Road.
Yeah, that's the problem with these isolated car storage areas where there's no maintenance office or anything else for anybody to attend to them. You just don't know. I mean, they could just be sitting there drip, drip, dripping, or one could just have the oil can drop right off of it. No one would notice, especially not on that stuff, because unlike pavement, it wouldn't be like you'd see the oil spreading out. It would just
And there's
soak
nobody
in
there,
underneath it.
or
There's
kids
nobody
come
there.
down and vandalize the
I'll
strip
check
of
back in the office and
cars.
see if they're
Okay,
there.
Cameras.
Thank you.
Yeah, they
Install
don't look at
cameras.
cameras till afterwards.
we do not have any reason, and also we don't see anybody here for the two agenda items for 50 Newbury Road. They were able to take advantage of the contingency that the commission had voted by we received Mr. Graham's testimony or email on Monday stating full compliance with stormwater standards, both state mass stormwater standards and the town of Broward's stormwater bylaw. And so that's why they're
already closed.
right.
Yeah.
You had voted the contingency that if they got everything done, that included plan revisions and stuff, the plans, printed plans were delivered to me today. I'm gonna get the electronic versions tomorrow, so I just have to write the two permits, the stormwater and the notice of attending, and that one's also a bylaw notice of intent. We don't have any certificate of compliance requests, status reports for permits and enforcement. The notice of violation for 17 Boxford Road, I met on site.
What was that?
Well, just a second here.
Oh, where did I put that?
That was a project right next to the Boxford Road Conservation Area. This is 17 Boxford Road where they started constructing possibly a shed or some kind of area to provide shade and cover for some of their livestock, horses, I think. So I met on
Oh, I know.
Met on site with Miss Heidi Harris,
Mhm.
and she's co-owner or the other partner with
Roach.
Danny Roach. I haven't met Mr. Roach or talked to him, but Miss Harris called me, and we met yesterday, and they had a conflict, weren't able to attend the meeting tonight. There's a possibility that Mr. Roach, I explained the jurisdiction of the 100-foot buffer zone, and that if they wish to put a structure in place, that they would need to file a request to determine applicability, but I could provide assistance, that it was, it was a low-key and not a extremely detailed, and I'd be glad to assist them. I don't know whether they wish to do that. I said, so either way, we're going to continue this to the July 31st meeting. They may be at the July 31st meeting with a request to determine applicability, or they may be at the July 31st meeting just to talk with the commission and for me to give you the results of my site visit, where I established that where they had put that started to put what looked like it was going to be the platform or floor, that was within 10 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands, looking towards Georgetown, which I think was.
And a well zone too, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but the point is that they were uncomfortably close to bordering vegetated wetlands and in an area of the property where it's really transitioning to where the established pasture had been, and it wasn't real clear. They didn't actually cut down any trees, and she showed me something, some piece of pipe mounted up there that indicated there may have been some kind of past usage, but the point is that where they were possibly siting this structure was not compliant with the commission's normal 25-foot no cut, no disturbance area. And they've got plenty of room where they could do that.
Yeah.
And so if they did want to seek permitting, that is also a way to cure the issue of the fact that a structure was started to be erected within the commission's jurisdiction without a permit.
How did this come to your
So
attention?
they could just move it.
I was doing the weed whacking on the Pingree Farm parcel and opening up the entrance over there, and I saw it.
Is this the dog breeder?
No,
Yes,
they're
yes,
oh, they
yes.
do horses too, though.
Yeah, but they're dog breeders.
Yeah, they're not specifically breeding horses, although apparently their mare did just have a foal a little while ago, but they do breed dogs.
Yeah, I've been on-
They've got a little sort of white
Yeah.
enclosure and little signs that announce.
Okay.
They-
There
Going
might be-
down Boxford Road, is this on the right or the left?
It's on the right.
On the right,
Is
as you
it
drive.
basically the first place?
Yes.
And there's a
Almost.
paddock?
Well, technically,
Yeah, there's
the
a
second
path.
place.
Second place, Lonnie Brocklebanks is the.
Yeah, there's a path.
Have you looked at the past record for this property?
It's always had a fun idea.
They've been, I think we've had problems with this property in the past.
But these are not the same
Not the
owners.
same.
No, because they just moved in there like 8 years ago.
So,
All right, is there anything else?
Well, there
Yes.
Oh,
I just wanted to raise a question with regard to the Hazen situation, and the possibility of a notice of intent being filed, and whether we should take into consideration waiving fees for that as far as the town's aspect of it goes, since the filing is at our request and to meet our purposes for establishing a no-cut.
our fee would be $25.
Well, why should we burden the applicant with it?
Well, let me look back and see whether you did that for number 10 Haverhill Street. Again, I would strongly suggest that we follow what we established on the abutting property, since almost all the criteria are the same, the resource area impacts are the same, the history of the fact that those lots were filled in the past in order to establish small, single-family residences. I think
I don't have a problem.
I would
with that.
strongly advise consistency on how, since they are abutting parcels, how they be treated. And again,
Well, if couples.
you notice that I tried to make an assessment on if we did use the same criteria of that abutting property as to whether it would be burdensome and cause a detrimental impact to the utilization of their backyard and
Which is
stuff.
good.
And again, I'm trying to, how do you say, I'm trying to put a very humanistic and a realistic implementations of our protections.
The
of
warm and
wetland
fuzzy
resources.
Okay.
Well, realistic, be realistic.
Requires additional engineering fees for the firm involved in it to do.
Actually, no.
To do an
No,
additional.
Mr.
application.
Mineta is going to do the same engineering that he would do to meet compliance with Board of Health standards,
But
so.
he has to come here.
Additional hours,
Yeah,
state,
that's
they're going to pay a state fee in addition to our fee.
Well, again,
Just because we might have done it in the past, doesn't necessarily mean we have to follow, because I'm sure those considerations weren't taken into.
I'll be more than surprised. I think I can anticipate and tell you that the state fee is probably going to be like $55 or something like that.
Maybe you should pay that fine. I withdraw that one.
Yeah, that's a bad idea.
But anyway, I wanted to raise that.
And I appreciate that, and I hope I'm demonstrating, applying your same sensitivity to the situation and how I counsel people in regards to their needing permit.
It's a small property and situations may come up again. They generally don't like waiving fees for anything, but
Right.
just a thought.
The next item?
Well, when I did want to, I'm seeking the commission's advice and guidance in this because I did an inspection for 180 Central Street, which the commission knows we have a stormwater management permit for this property. It's development of, I believe, a total of 6 lots. 5 of the lots all have frontage on Bennett Hill Road, and one of the other lots is up across from Country Gardens, almost the entrance into their solar area, and where he, I believe, beds his mums and stuff in the fall of that open piece of property. So anyway, I had reviewed the property for limited clearing. This second site visit to the property was involved in inspecting the erosion control, seeing that things like the sacks, the filter sacks, are in the catch basins, and things like crushed stone, entrance-exit pad had been established, so they wouldn't track materials onto Bennett Hill Road. And when I do this, I go around the whole perimeter. So the problem is that the tree clearing company, without any rhyme or reason that I could see, decided they were going to cut a shortcut from the 5 lots on Bennett Hill over to the lot that is sort of isolated on frontage. So they violated our limit of work. And they violated it to the extent that there's an approximate 25 to 30 foot wide clearing that extends, I'd have to measure it exactly, but I'm going to estimate that it extends at least 100 feet, where they cut the woods that was not supposed to be cut. And
Why?
question, because it was easier for them to
Than
go
driving
through
around.
there than to take their equipment and make the short, slow trek down the roadway to get onto the lot. So this is a picture
So
of,
they actually went through there.
yeah,
Through the woods.
Because I had seen it from a distance, I said, that's strange, but I didn't.
yeah, they cut an opening right through there to go from the 5 lots on Bennett Hill and get over to the one separate isolated lot.
What can we do? What should we do?
Well, so it's a clear violation of the limit of work that was established. Under the stormwater management bylaw, you do have the same powers that you have under the wetlands bylaw. You can issue.
Now, I notice there's no silt socks or anything along that road.
Oh, well, exactly. It hasn't been stumped or anything, but it's obviously been driven over, and what ground cover there was has been churned up. It was probably mostly leaf litter, although there may have been a little bit of
Brush.
herbaceous cover, but probably.
But they're done, right? The damages is done and they're long gone.
Yeah, they just did it, even though they were told that there was, well, I mean, assuming they were told, they were supposed to be informed. That's why we went out and marked things. There were ribbons and paint marks put on the trees to clearly establish where clearing was supposed to stop. They went and did this on their own. They had no communications with the Conservation Office. You have the ability to fine them. You can also issue, I think, something like an enforcement order against them under the stormwater management permit. We can require that that area be restored.
Well,
was
right
the-
now, if we have a bad rainstorm, that is up. It's all downhill.
It's a
Yeah.
slope all going down to the
Right.
lot that has the frontage on Central Street.
They'd at least be forced to.
We can
remedy that
require
situation.
erosion control, be put, a couple tiers of erosion control be put across there to stop anything like that, we could require it to be immediately mulched.
Can they go in there and like re-rake that?
I'm sorry?
Can they go back in there and put some cover over there?
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Huh?
And he could develop a wood, yeah, they'd clean that out.
Just go in there and put back or spread that stuff out and put some
You
erosion.
grind and chip it right there on
Yeah,
the
just
spot,
throw,
it
yeah,
actually
blow,
covers it.
yeah, blow it onto that area or something.
Right, but the problem is they cut vegetation that was not supposed to be cut.
Yeah, that's,
So we can require it to be replanted.
Who is they?
I don't know, I have
I
to
didn't
look up who
recognize the
the
name.
tree cutting.
I didn't
firm was. I
recognize
think there was
one.
someone from either Georgetown or something, New Hampshire or
do
something.
you go after the tree company or do you go after the?
Doesn't,
No, you go
No,
after, no.
whoever's got the permit.
doesn't this?
TST, I think it is, TST?
That's TST. That's actually between two pieces of property, and I doubt that they're even the same owner.
I'm not sure, but I can
Yeah, I
find.
mean, I'm
The
just
the
saying.
permit
that-
applies to, I mean, well, first off, we can require them to submit information to us of exactly which parcels this infraction occurred on. We have the ability to require that information to be submitted. We have the ability to require them to take immediate steps to install erosion control, some type of mulching to stabilize it. And then we can also require them to submit a restoration revegetation plan approved by a qualified professional.
I think we should.
One additional thought. Why can't we also require them to redo stormwater management permit? Because they greatly increased
Square footage.
the square footage of what was
That's true.
destroyed.
Well, except if we require them to restore it to the vegetative cover that was at least before, that actually doesn't change then the calculations.
But-
I mean, if we let them change it to turf grass, yes, if we let them change it to lawn, but I'm assuming we're not gonna do that. I'm assuming we're
No,
gonna
we should stabilize it and vegetate it.
Well,
Right.
You're
It
not,
don't have to be lawn,
And
it
that
doesn't
can-
have to be blueberries.
It can
doesn't
be
have to
replanted with trees.
you're not gonna get the tree
Right.
canopy for 20 years it existed. So.
No, but you're gonna get shrub within a year if you do it, if you take care of
You
it
know,
this year.
that will change.
And just
that will
having
change the
field,
nature
just
of
having
stormwater.
field grass in there is going to get it back to pretty much the same coefficient for
But I think we
infiltration
should.
and stuff.
We don't have much teeth, but I think we should.
Can I,
Well, there's been a huge hue and cry in the community about the cutting of trees on this
That's
property.
why I feel that. Yeah.
And so, and then we have these guys go and do something like this, which just, I think, demonstrates not only a lack of respect to the commission's permitting process where we establish a limit of work, but this also establishes a great insensitivity to the whole community and all the neighbors there by cutting additional trees that there was no reason for them to be cut.
Exactly.
And that is on property that can be, at this point, multiple owners? That will.
Well,
that
it
right
may
away-
be, but it's all covered by our single stormwater permit covers this
With that
this
company.
lot. Yeah.
Do I hear a motion to have Brent proceed?
So basically, you're, something like an enforcement order with a directive requires immediate action and the things I discussed.
Sam wanted to say something.
Go ahead, Sam.
I am not trying to, I guess I'd say add a distract to this because I theoretically should be quiet, I believe, although at this point in time, I have no tie to that property
Right.
and have not for over a month. I was surprised to see what I thought might be that, and I said, nah, they wouldn't have done that, so I didn't even investigate. But one thing I will say is that there were ways that you could make a trail through that woods without cutting significant trees. So
Yes.
I haven't investigated this.
I haven't
don't know.
surveyed it for number of cut stumps or diameter of trees.
My point is that technically they could kind of be okay on that if they'd chosen the right path. I doubt that they did that.
It looks like it's just a straight path.
But-
In my view,
But this is contrary to the fact that I had already visited that property and specifically marked limits of work in both areas where they went right through what I had marked as the limit of work.
And what I am saying is that I fully agree that it was a breaking of the, not a law, but
Well, they broke the rules of the permit.
Our regulations, okay? And that all I'm saying is that I'm not sure how much you would put in there to replace what they took out.
Well, it's just
Because
stabilized.
I don't know what they took out.
We gotta make it
But
stable. right?
you gotta stabilize it, yeah. There
Yeah.
should have been grass growing there. 'Cause that was actually
And it-
all grass
In
at some point.
In a number of restorations that I participated in Haverhill, where we had the woods cut, you cannot replace the basal area of the individual trees. But what you can do is you can establish a criteria for spacing, and usually we adopted a criteria of between 10 and 12 feet for half-inch to 1-inch caliper saplings.
Sure.
To reestablish quote-unquote woody trees, the tree component of your woods. Because it's usually better, especially as you were mentioning earlier, in a site like this, it basically had been used as a nursery, and then some of the tree species that were there were just the fact that they hadn't been sold, and then were let to be there. So looking at the spacing of what was there, as well as the species, isn't necessarily indicative of what quote-unquote should or could be there. So I don't think we have to necessarily follow any criteria in terms of what stumps were left or anything else. But what we can do is insist that it be replanted so it at least has a chance of reestablishing itself as being a woods as opposed to something else.
Obviously be stabilized, and because we are requesting that it be stabilized, there should be no stumps or anything pulled from that, because that
Oh, no,
destabilizes
we don't want
everything.
any earth disturbance.
No more disturbance, you stabilize it, you put chips on it, you put hay on it, do whatever, you put the silt socks up, that is minimal. And I'll leave that up to you, and I feel comfortable with you,
Yeah.
and I talk to you virtually every day, so. But I think we should, I would like to hear a motion, I think we should do something on
You
this.
can
I've
direct.
Go ahead, Kurt.
another thought or two. This was for their convenience presumably, so they didn't have to go around and.
We believe.
Did for that last lot off of Central Street.
Yep.
I would like to suggest that we chain this off immediately and sign it so that they can't continue to take wood supplies from the other lot just for convenience
Everything's
purposes.
out of there, really, I think.
Well, no, but they're gonna.
Yeah,
they're
but
gonna
when
keep using
they
it.
start building, so.
You mean start digging?
So we can do that orange construction fencing on metal fence posts on both sides of it, once we get it stabilized and the erosion control and the replanting done, we can put that construction safety fencing on it
Good point,
and
I
close
didn't
it
even
off.
think of
Well,
using it
I
for
mean,
the
it's
rest
gonna
of it.
trample to create a trampling effect on the earth.
Well, yes, it would compress the soil or whatever, yeah.
My understanding of the situation is this is kind of similar to what happened on Dodge Road. But in this situation, there's significant reason for concern about rain and so on. And that basically you would virtually issue an enforcement order and say before you can do anything, you have to
Right.
do that.
Right, that's not why I said
And
an
one of those-
enforcement order with a directive.
One of those points on the enforcement order is you gotta put a fence up on both sides, so this is not used,
Right,
right?
yep,
Good point.
yep, exactly.
Never even thought of this.
Cease and desist from any further
It's
activity.
not that we put the fence up, they put the fence up.
Yes.
They
No,
have to do
we're gonna, require them to do it, yes.
You can always tape it off.
So do we need a motion?
You know, we could have a hurricane, I mean, we could have a heavy rain situation.
Oh, yeah.
In the next month here. Yes, do I hear such a motion? So basically, we're gonna turn this enforcement order over to Brent.
As long as we don't preclude the possibility of fines.
Yes. Oh, I agree.
Let's see what the outcome.
Attitude is very.
We usually always write again, if the bylaw allows me to do directives like we do under the wetlands bylaw, I always put a provision in there for fining anyways.
Okay.
Especially if they don't,
It's the first one I'm involved in, but, and I've taken pride in that, but this here is a slap in the face.
yeah.
So,
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
I abstain.
Yes.
just a quick comment, you mentioned Dodge Road, have you been over there lately, Brent?
Not within the last week since the holiday, but prior to that, I had been there a
You
lot.
see all the extra, so there's more, so they're starting to open up the other lots.
Oh, well, I've worked with the gentleman
they're allowed-
who purchased the 2 lots off the Carmen driveway,
Yeah, so,
lot 1
yeah.
and 2, yes,
So that's cool,
yeah.
okay, just checking,
Yeah.
because I noticed a lot of.
No, again, established the limit of work
Okay,
with him,
okay.
had the tree cutter come in, then did the erosion control. and-
Yep, okay, just checking,
Yep. No, he's been,
much better than the others.
Is that it for our docket tonight?
yes.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.